Well, hey, what's going on? Welcome into another edition of Chatterbox Reds. Nick Kirby joined by Mike Hart, talking a little Cincinnati Reds baseball as the calendar's almost to March. Want to remind you that we have a Chatterbox Reds audio-only podcast every single morning during spring training. So after every single game, recap the game, give you some news and nuggets of what's going on with spring training, some quotes, maybe some audio interviews with players from Arizona. So that's audio only, Chatterbox Reds, anywhere you get podcasts. It's after every single game. So even on the weekends, we have something there for you. And that's in addition to these videos. So these videos, when we do interviews, like me and Mike have a little bit of a discussion, we'll add that to the podcast too. But there's a lot more with the podcast that you don't see right here. All right, so Mike Hart, my friend, how we doing? How we enjoying a couple days of spring training? One game that we got to see on TV and the other that we've seen a bunch of little clips.
I've been out of town, so I haven't even really been able to listen to it on the radio. So I've just been following it through the shaky cam videos that we're getting of Ellie hitting triples. But it's been good. I'm with you. I heard you and Greg talk about yesterday, like, well, I don't know, like, just give us even the bare feed. Like, just were they here to watch it? You made a good point too. Is like, this is when we want to watch it, right? Because when they're going to start ramping things up into it, it's going to get into things like March Madness and other things going on.
World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, there's like nothing to watch. If you don't watch basketball, there is like nothing to watch right now. And Reds fans are starving for some Reds content. And we'd love to just, even if it was just, that bare feed with the radio, like, we'll take it. So I'm with you.
Well, let's talk about Chase Burns. Sure would have been nice to have seen him on the television today.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty brilliant day. What was the number? Was it 14 swing and misses? I should have this in front of me. I do not. It was a ridiculous number. I know that today. Command's still a little bit shaky for him, but the stuff is just so ridiculous. Yeah, 14 swing and misses. Just to kind of put this in context, all right? Because people are like, 14 swing, it's spring training. What does it matter? Like, Nick Lodolo struck out 4 batters the day before. I don't know. I get my days mixed up when we're recording on one day for the next day. But the previous day, Nick Lodolo struck out 4 batters, and he had 6 swing and misses, which was like a nice number. Like, they pitched the same amount of innings. They both pitched 2. Actually, Burns got 1 more batter out. He did go a little bit further. But, like, to go from 6 to 14, like, no one, even though we're in spring training, no one's getting this many swing and misses. Like, oh, man. It's hard not to just, like, dream about, like, how great this guy can be.
Right. And you mentioned the command is starting to get there. He even mentioned his post-game presser, I think, or his comments that he still needs to work on being able to land that, get his control. He knows he's got good stuff, but like it, even improvement from the last time he pitched. I think he watched 4 in his first outing and only 2 here. If he can get that dialed in, like, it's the type of stuff that is just like every time he comes to the mound, you're like, could he throw a no-hitter? And just like we wanted to pump the brakes on how excited we're getting on Sal Stewart last night, like this is the type of thing that you're just looking at and you're just like, man, is this guy going to be able to be top of the rotation maybe even this year? Didn't even think we would get it this year. It's like, oh yeah, just be our 5th starter. And just like, here we go. We got a guy who's all of a sudden challenging Hunter Green for the opening day starter next year. Like, this is the type of stuff that it's not hard to squint and see that Chase Burns would be able to do.
So a wild stat line from him: did not give up a hard hit ball, but gave up a home run.
Hit a home run?
Yeah. I wonder how many pitchers over the course of baseball have gone like 2+ innings, didn't allow a hard hit ball, but give up a home run. I'm guessing that number cannot be that many. Chase Burns joined that list, but yeah, it's just some dominant stuff. The unfortunate thing is at some point you're going to be talking about his innings limit. That's probably going to be a bigger discussion than honestly how effective I think he can be. Because I mean, I don't want to say he's going to be like dominant, but I feel pretty confident that he is at least an above average big league starter in 2026. And the wild thing is, Mike, like, he put up pretty good numbers last year, and he got beat around at Fenway Park in one of his starts that inflated his numbers. Like, and that was just tipping pitches. It wasn't like he did anything wrong, like anything like, mechanically wrong or it was just tipping pitches. So like, I mean, man, he could put up some really incredible numbers. I don't know if people are realizing just how dominant he could be this year.
Yeah, and you bring in innings limits and stuff like that, and I know people will initially get up in arms about that, but I think there is a way to be able to do this to not only preserve how many innings he's doing, but also just like get him so that he's able to be peaking at the end of the year. He's somebody that, like, when he's right, you love him starting a playoff game, right? And we've seen with some of these younger pitchers, whether it's Lodolo or Andrew Abbott comes to mind for me, right? Have looked really good and then worn down as the year goes on. And that's something that he's had to work through in his young career to get better at. It's like, I think if the Reds are able to manage this well, we are able to, I think that if they just throw him out there for 30 starts, he may also just wear down. So if they're able to manage that a little bit better, then we might be able to still get a pretty fresh Chase Burns potentially pitching a playoff game. And that is exciting. That is the kind of thing that just like, can win you a series. Hunter Green, Chase Burns, Nick Lodolo, and it's just like nobody realized, it's like, wow, that team didn't score more than 3 runs, right? So it's just like I think that's part of it as well, because we love this version of Chase Burns for the 162, but that's not always how it ends up. And so being able to space it out so he doesn't run off at the end, I think may be wise by the Reds.
All right, so I'm already doing this, Mike. My sicko behavior. All right, so for the Red Sox, they've got some lefties, but here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna throw Green on opening day, then we're gonna have Abbott and Singer pitch. So that way we're lining up against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're not gonna let the Pirates. We're coming after these guys right off the bat. They're gonna have to face Nick Lodolo, Chase Burns, and Hunter Green. So that's why we're lining this up. Division games. We'll let Singer go against the Red Sox. We'll let him do a little American League game, and we're not letting the Pirates breathe. Are you with me on this?
I like that, because with that is probably going to be Bubba Chandler and Paul Skeens on the other side. So it's like they're going to be throwing some of their high class arms as well. So it's going to be, I'm with you. Let's just bury them early, man. A 3-game sweep of like 2-1, 1-0, and 2-0 to end the series would be wild. Reds Pirates for the season. I don't know who would be more. I don't know what would be. It'd be more sad that we can't hit, or that we still just got the wins.
All off solo home runs from the new look. 2026 Cincinnati Reds.
That's right.
The opposite of last season. Cool. One cool moment on Thursday's game. Tyler Callihan hit a home run, which obviously just an incredible story for him to come back. The fact that he's actually playing baseball already, pretty remarkable. He had to go through a crazy recovery after that brutal injury. He's an interesting player this spring, Mike. Not because I don't think he has any chance of making the opening day roster unless there's maybe multiple injuries. It'd have to at least be one injury, probably an infield injury. But he's kind of fighting for a unique thing in that kind of fighting to keep that 40-man spot, which I don't know. Maybe in his mind, it might be better to lose that 40-man spot, because I think he's probably talented enough to find his way onto a big league roster somewhere. But it's kind of interesting. The Reds might have an interesting decision. We had talked about before we went on, if Nate Lowe makes his roster, which I think he should. I think you agree with me as Mike, then you have to take someone off the 40-man roster. It could be a reliever, but Tyler Callihan would probably be the one that would make the most sense. Now, again, there could be a pitching injury that requires at least 60 days, and then if you put someone on the 60-day IL, then you have a 40-man roster spot open up, and this isn't a problem. But he is kind of an interesting player in that regard.
Yeah. Have we accounted for Carson Spires going onto the IL, or is he not on the 40-man anymore?
He's not on the 40-man. He cleared. Okay. He cleared through. Yeah.
Yeah. So unless there's a catastrophic injury, I think that he may be, because besides that, there's, I guess Rhys Hines would be your other one, right?
And there's no way the Reds are dumping Rhys Hines. Someone would trade for him.
I think, So they may just be like, who do we think is going to pass through waivers? The only other one that I can think of is maybe Sam Mole, right? But lefty depth is something that I don't think they're going to be
They
willing to
tendered him a
part with.
contract too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's interesting because as a Reds fan, you want him to do well, but as somebody that may want to be able to stash him in AAA, you're like, well, they'll do that well because we don't want another team to pick him up. But I think you're right. I think he is, for his sake, if he performs well, I think he may get picked up on waivers or maybe even do the classic for cash considerations trade that the Reds get for him to be able to get some playing time. So it's good. It's good to see him back. It's good to see him being able to, play baseball again after such a gruesome injury. And hopefully we're able to, he's the depth that I would like the Reds to have, because we know that there's going to be some churn when it comes to infield injuries or something like that, especially with people like Brian Hayes, who has shown it in the past. So he's somebody I like to keep around, but I would imagine it might get hairy on whether or not he's able to pass through waivers. You got to remember too that everyone else is on this 40-man crunch. Like earlier in the off season, some people have open spots on their roster, but now we're in spring training and like all these other teams, if they were to pick up Tyler Callihan, are like having to remove somebody of their own from it. So I think now it's a little bit easier for you to hopefully get somebody through waivers because of just where people are in spring training.
Yeah, it's gonna the Reds 40-man roster. I mean, like, it's not the most incredible roster by any means. I'm not out here trying to say it's like the Dodgers or anything like that, but like last year, pretty much at any point you could have looked up and down and found three guys like, yep, you cut him. Yasser Zulueta or whoever. There was always someone. There's not a single guy in here that I go, that's an easy cut. Every single person that you would cut, I feel like you'd be like, oh man, that could bite us. I feel like every single one of them. So that's interesting, and it also like kind of in some ways might prohibit the Reds, or at least make it very difficult if there is like a last minute player that does get put on waivers. Like it might be really hard because the Reds might have to take Tyler Callihan off the 40, but then try to find someone else as well. So it'll be interesting to see, and I think the Reds probably are probably not going to be one of those teams that are adding at the last minute. They've had some big ones too with those. Scooter Jeanette is like maybe the biggest one in recent memory that comes to mind, that he was just put on waivers a few days before opening day. Reds picked him up and ended up being an all-star. So there's players of that caliber that could be available. I'm not sure the Reds are going to be able to find a way to add them.
Yeah, I think in the past couple of years where they've even been able to do that, there haven't been too many of those available anyway. So I find it hard to find a scenario where that bites us, where there's like somebody out there that like legitimately I think makes the Reds better that they just can't go out and get. So I think it would probably be all right. But you're right. I think that that could be a situation that they find themselves in. That that's good. That's a good problem to have when you got a deep 40-man roster.
Deep South Commodities is a proud supporter of Chatterbox Reds and our Deep Drive of the Day, and DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks as always to our friends at DSC. And we also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. All right, moving right along here. We got our first real news, I would say, ahead of the CBA that expires, the collective bargaining agreement between the MLB owners and the MLB players that ends December 1st, 2026. John Heyman reports that MLB owners are discussing early estimates for a potential $260 to $280 million salary cap and a $140 to $160 million salary floor. That's ahead of the collective bargaining agreement expiring on December 1st. So found this interesting. There's a lot of people that kind of have taken this and kind of run with it and had some wild takes. I would kind of say, first off, this is the first version of this. Like if you're saying, well, that's a terrible lowball owner from the owners. Like, okay, well, they're not going to come out with like the bet. Like, this is not their final offer. Like, this is the first of a negotiation at what we expect to be a long, probably pretty nasty, tenuous negotiation. But I don't know. I kind of looked at that, Mike. I was like, $140 million floor. That's where they're starting at. That was what, to me, kind of went, okay, all right, we might actually be able to play ball with something here. Maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people clamor for the floor, but the Reds the past 2 years would have cleared that floor. So, it's they're at, I think they're projected at like 146 million this year, and I think 146 this year, and I think they had around 142 last year. So they would have cleared that floor. I think, obviously right now there are 3 or 5 teams that are projected this upcoming year to be over the 280. And Dodgers are 380, so wide open. So it's interesting because it basically, like, if this were to magically just go into effect next year, it basically is going to force the Rays, the Pirates, the Guardians and such to spend up to the limit. And then it's like the Reds almost would probably not change, which I don't know, maybe is why Reds fans were a little bit frustrated about this, because I guess the Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, Phillies become a little bit closer because they can't spend $100 million more than they are now. But like, I don't know if that was ultimately what lands, if the Reds necessarily spend any more on free agency and in the current years, because they're already hitting that floor. That's why I think I'd like to see that floor higher. That's what it's about 50% of the cap, right? And I think we see that gap in like the NFL, which I think is there's no way, I don't think they're getting to this level of a gap. I think it's like the penalty is at 89% of the cap. Like if a team doesn't spend its annual has an annual requirement of being about 89% of the minimum average, or 89% of the cap as a 4-year average. If they don't do that, they then having to start pay fines. So it's just like 89% is very close. Like, that band of where these teams can be is much, much smaller than, I think what about 50%. So I would have, if I were hoping for things to hopefully bring the Reds closer to being able to compete with teams like the Dodgers, I'd like that gap to be a little bit smaller, which hopefully means, bringing that floor up now, and then being able to use revenue sharing or whatever to, provide more spending for some of these smaller teams.
Yeah. And again, remember, starting point. That's, I think, the biggest key to this is the first one. And again, like, they're not going to start at what their final offer would be for the floor. But, I mean, it's still pretty significant. The Marlins were at $86 million. The White Sox were at $91 million last year. So that's a pretty steep. If you would have asked me what I thought the owners might start at, I probably would have thought it'd be like 120. Like, so 140 is a little bit higher than I would have anticipated. Right now, I don't really know how much this would help the Reds, if it would really help them at all, because it would number one, move the Pirates up a little bit. The Pirates would have to spend a little bit more, not much, maybe more than, like, they're kind of spending a little bit above their means, I think, right now, based on what they've done in the past. They've usually been a little bit further behind the Reds. But they would go up, and the Cubs are already below the $280 million, and so, like, you're not really getting that. I mean, it would be, I think, good for baseball, just not to have a team that's so far exorbitant above everyone else. I guess the thing that might help the Reds is it just might make some of these, like, Kyle Schwarber might be more realistic if there's a salary cap. Phillies at 314 would have been a lot harder for them to sign him if there would have been a $280 salary cap, and then that would have gave the Reds a better chance. And so, like, I do think that's probably where it could maybe help the small markets the most is the ability to sign some of these top tier free agents, just because some of the bigger names aren't going to be able to just sign everyone, which is, I'm sure, what the Players Association is arguing isn't fair to them. But at some point, can we just like kind of everyone in the room kind of think about what's good for the sport? Like I just finished watching, the Winter Olympics, and watched hockey players like literally lose teeth to try to win a gold medal. And it was great for their sport. Like, people are going to watch the NHL that didn't before. It's good for the sport. Like, I kind of like, maybe, can we just get like an ounce of that energy into these discussions?
Yeah, and with the Olympics coming up in 2028, where there's going to be baseball as well, so I'm imagining that's probably going to be part of the discussions as well for this new CBA. One thing you also got to remember is like, as these floor and the cap gets closer and closer together, you got to remember that the owners need to agree to be able to give something to the players, and the closer you make it, the more teams get frustrated about it. Like this opening salvo, the Dodgers probably don't like it, right? Because they're at the top, but also the Pirates don't like it because they're going to be forced to spend more than they want to, right? And so the closer you make that gap, the more teams you get that just like the owners wouldn't agree to send this to the players. And so, you got to keep that in mind, just with the disparity that there is. If they want to even propose something to the MLBPA, they have to agree on it, which there's a lot of contention when it comes to that type of stuff too. So I think that's something to keep in mind, and why that band may not get as close as we would want it.
Yeah, I think right now probably the only teams that are really would be angry about that would be the Dodgers. I don't know if like even the Mets really. The Mets would be like, okay, that's great. Like, we'd rather have the Dodgers get brought down, even if we have to go down a little bit. I think the teams like, in my opinion, I think the Dodgers are probably the only team right now at the top that I think the top team. Now, if you lower it down to like 240, where like they're getting pushed back further into like the Arizona
Boston,
Diamondbacks
Braves,
of the world,
yeah.
those type of teams, then I think the top teams might get a little more upset. But right now, I don't think they're probably that upset with that. I think at the bottom right now, it's probably just the Marlins, the Rays, maybe the Pirates. Although the Pirates, I don't think that's that big of a leap for them to where they're like, yeah, we're not that big of a deal. The A's,
probably Cleveland. Probably Cleveland.
Cleveland's at 128 though right now. I mean, that's $12 million. It's not like I would think if I'm a Cleveland owner, I could spend $12 million and the top's going to come down. It kind of feels like a pretty good trade-off. Now, if I'm the Marlins and I have to spend $60 million more, that's a pretty big leap. So, again, we don't know what the A's situation is going to be because they're going to Las Vegas, and that's going to be a whole different market, and I don't know what that's going to look like. The White Sox are spinning really low right now, but I think when they get out of the rebuild, I think they've been, I think, a top maybe 7 or 8 team, I think, at one point. So I don't think there's that many teams that are affected with that. But yes, your point's for sure valid that the further it gets, the more teams get angry or get against this. I think, though, the further you go into this, the more you have to find creative ways to revenue share better to make it work. I think that's the only way it'll work.
Right. And Trace has mentioned this too, some version of ways to give an advantage to a team to keep their homegrown star.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not, a lawyer in union case law, but it's like being able to give the Reds some sort of leg up to be able to try to keep somebody like an Elly De La Cruz is I think would be is something that I think Reds fans would be much, much more interested in coming out of this CBA than potentially the cap and floor, because I think that is, if you're able to get Elly in his prime years and give him, basically give him his whole career in Cincinnati, like that's we're talking, if he rises to what we think he is, that's just like Joey Votto and beyond in what he'd be able to provide to Cincinnati. So, something like that. I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but boy, that would be nice to be able to, be in the running to keep somebody like Elly De La Cruz long term.
$260 million cap certainly wouldn't hurt the Reds' chances.
That's true.
I'm not going to say it'd be great, But if it's 5% right now, 260, I don't know, maybe moves it up to 20, 25%, maybe, because you're the only team that can offer him a deal right now. So you have to think about that, whatever side you want to be on this.
Mm-hmm.
Lower that cap is, the higher the chances are of keeping Ellie De La Cruz. I'll leave it at that today. I didn't have this in here, Mike. Sorry about this. Terry Francona had an interesting comment today about the ABS. Basically said that ABS is going to change some games this season. The Reds kind of had a rally on Thursday that kind of changed the game. And yeah, it's a totally. I know you've been kind of really dialed into the ABS, and you're fascinated by it. And it is. It's going to change some games. I think we had talked before about how it's going to. I think add pitches or take away pitches, especially like in the first inning when you have a pitcher that is on the ropes and might have to throw 40 pitches and you get that strike and he only throws 15 or that type of thing. But yeah, I mean it's gonna change some games. It's gonna be an interesting. I think the strategy is maybe the thing that we're maybe not talking about or thinking about the most that it's gonna kind of bring into the sport.
Yeah, and I think Francona was saying all of the right things. I heard that. It's just like pitchers basically you're not allowed to challenge. I was like, great. Pitchers. I think his quote was like, pitchers have never thrown a ball that they haven't thought was a strike, is what he said. But the idea, I'm just glad that they're taking this seriously, right? This is something that they realize and they're hopefully honing in on. Like that strategy that you're talking about probably just isn't fully developed yet, right? They're probably working on like training their catchers on understanding the strike zone and when is the best way to do it. I bet there may even be some sort of development as this goes on, like in football of a fourth down chart. I don't know if you've seen this. I know you're not a big football fan, but there's just like based on where you are on the field and how far you need to go to fourth down, there's like a go or no go on whether you should go for it on fourth down or not. I would imagine there's going to be some version of that too, where it's just like depending on the inning or the leverage of the situation, how many people are on, how many strikes, there's going to be some sort of chart where it's like if you're close. If you think it's close, go ahead and let it fly here. And then maybe in some of these other areas, unless you're like is way off. Like we've seen some so far this spring where it's just like, that ball was right down the middle. It's like, yep, go ahead and challenge it. Easy win, move on. And so I think that as this goes on, there's going to be whole, parts of the Red strategy is going to be focused on how to best deploy this challenge system, which is good. I'm glad that they're taking advantage of it because I know there will be teams that won't. And it's just another thing that I love the Reds to be able to have a little bit of an edge on for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's you have to kind of know the leverage spots of the game, and if it's close, I mean, this play has a 30% change of the outcome of the game, and then you want to challenge it more than something that has like a 2% if it's close. And this is also the interesting thing, Mike, is this is going to also play into, I think, some sort of impact on which catcher you play. I mean, like if I have no idea who's going to be good and not. I don't think we really have any idea yet. But if Tyler Stevenson stinks at this, and I'm not saying he will, I'm hoping he's great at it. But if he stinks at this, and Jose Trevino is incredible, like, I'm going to have a harder time playing Tyler Stevenson as much because is Tyler Stevenson's bat going to outweigh these potential game-changing calls?
Or we just get a lot more late inning substitutions.
Yeah.
It's just like Trevino comes in to catch the 8th and the 9th where we might need it. We might need that expertise.
Or Will Banfield screwed.
Yeah. I really hope that I think that we've seen the good thing that with Tyler Stevenson, we've seen him struggle at things, work on them, and get better at them. His blocking, right? He got much better at that last year. He's getting better at the framing aspect of it. I like to think that even if he's maybe not elite at it, that he would be enough where it's not just like a glaring hole in difference between your catchers. I like to think that they will be able to both provide good value on that.
Stevenson has always had a pretty good eye at the plate, so I'm hoping that like he's had an above average walk rate throughout his career. So I'm sure he'll be fine behind the plate. Again, I'm just throwing a hypothetical out there. I believe in Tyler Stevenson. I'm the Tyler Stevenson cheerleader, but I'm throwing a hypothetical that it could change across baseball. You could have those type of situations. All right, one last thing real quick, Mike. Reds opening day tickets. The prices are skyrocketing. I think the Boston Red Sox, being the team coming to opening day, probably also is weighing a little. There'll probably be a lot more opposing fans at opening day than we've seen in a long time. Just because you're playing the Red Sox. It was a huge fan base that I'm sure a lot of them want to be at the first game of the year. Tickets right now, the get-in price is $144. The average, the get-in for the lower levels is $260 something. The average is like $400 and something. If you want a really good seat, you're looking at $700. Mike, this is crazy. So a 13-game package starts at like $220, Mike. I have to say, as a diehard Reds fan, if you had to choose between 13 games or opening day, what do you choose?
See, I don't know. I go to opening day every year, and I will be ponying up. In fact, this made me be like, I got to buy these tickets sooner before the prices go up even higher. So, and I don't live in the city, but so there is a little bit there, but there's just something special about opening day. I've seen some things on there of Boston fans that are like, wait a minute. Like, I hear it's crazy down there. I hear it's super fun to be a part of. Let's go experience that. Let's go do. And so I think you're right. There are going to be some away fans. I think Reds country is still going to, show out, and it's going to still be mostly Reds. It's not like when the Cubs come in and invade, Cubs fans come and invade. I don't think we would have something like that. But, there's something special about opening day. And I think that I'm still probably ponying up for opening day just because, it's just nothing like that, that cheese coney before the game, the walk down, the nachos in the 7th inning, and hopefully Tito bringing out Emilio Pagan in the 9th inning and not Ian Jabot. So, I think I'm still going for opening day.
Has Ian Jabot signed anywhere yet? This is how my brain works. My ADD.
Poor guy. Don't pile on.
Still a free agent.
Is he pitching for Great Britain? He pitch for Great Britain.
I hope so.
WSBC.
I hope so. Shout out Ian Jabot. I feel like somehow he's gonna find his way back. He always does. Mike, I'm for sure taking the 13 games.
Yeah.
I'm the bargain guy. I got a great comment on this. Mike Petrie. My brother and I bought the 13 game plan one year and sold the opening day tickets 12 games for free. Now that is a smart man. That is a business mind right there. That's good stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's gonna be a lot of Red Sox fans. I went to a couple Guardians Red Sox playoff games, and there was a lot of Red Sox fans there. So I think there'll be a lot there. So that's probably also gonna. I saw like there's one of the markets that'll show you like the price go up or down. It says it'll probably go down slightly. I don't know. I think the Red Sox fans might kind of inflate that when it gets closer, but we shall see. Any final thoughts here, Mike?
No, I'm just ready to watch a game, which hopefully we'll be able to get to do on Saturday.
Yeah.
And once again, knock on wood, but another day, another injury-free day. They did get a win, even though Graham Ashcraft had a forgettable outing. So, this is the best I think that we can expect for spring training games before we even get to March. Just continue to keep improving, keep everybody healthy, and go from there.
Yeah, thankfully we got a spring training game on Saturday televised when Xavier, Cincinnati, and UK all play at the same time. Why would you want to, not throw it on a Thursday afternoon when there's nothing else to compete with? But that's how they do it. All right, Mike. Well, appreciate you, my friend. Enjoyed this conversation. As always, like the video if you're watching here on YouTube. A reminder, Chatterbox Reds podcast available everywhere you get podcasts. New episodes the morning after every single spring training game, recapping the game, running through all the storylines. That's not in video form, so that is separate from what you're seeing right now. Be sure to check that out. We would appreciate it. All right, well, we'll talk again soon. As always, go Reds.